What's good, everybody? It's Robo back with another video, and today I'm bringing you my first NBA draft big board of the 2025 cycle. Before I get into it, I want to let you guys know again, my off-season content is going to be a wide variety of stuff. My next video is going to be my first NFL mock draft of the year, and on top of that, I've got more NBA and college football off-season videos here and there planned. So stay tuned to the channel if any of that interests you, but that's it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started into the big board. Before we get into the list, here's my honorable mentions. These are guys that I do not currently have in my top 60, but I absolutely see as draftable talents or close to it if they were to declare. This isn't in a well thought out order as I haven't really gotten that far yet. A lot of the younger guys in this list I would expect to return to school unless they have a great second half of the season. Let me know your thoughts on if there's anyone here you think deserves a spot in that top 60. I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on these guys or even players that I left off the list. But with that, let's go ahead and get started with the top 60, starting at number 1. Cooper Flagg obviously comes in at number 1. Any early doubts were premature as he's been on a tear lately. A fairly quick adjustment for the recently turned 18-year-old has him averaging over 20 points a game in the last 10, including a recent 40-piece. And look at every part of the elite defensive prospect we expected. The shot making is improving, and we've seen the athleticism and IQ on display all year. The biggest gripe is still the handle, but at his age, there's plenty of time for growth, and I think all the traits he's shown at his size are what make him the top prospect for this year's draft.
Flagg on the drive, the turnaround. 15 points, has not scored, has not played a whole lot in the second half.
For the first time, and picked off. Flagg on the attack.
Dylan Harper is my number 2. Watching Harper dominate for this Rutgers team every night is a treat. He's got a rare blend of scoring, playmaking, and size to make him really unguardable. He can get to the rim whenever he wants, has a really strong handle to help him do so, and the jumper has come along into being a strength point. His skill set's often compared to guys like Cade Cunningham or a bigger Jalen Brunson, and you can really see it when you watch him play. And I definitely see the potential of a future All-NBA level guard watching Harper play, even with Rutgers struggling quite a bit this season.
Good recovery here against
Harper with a spin. Dale.
See if they can open up the floor. Wow, look at this.
Harper! Dylan! Top 10 of the conference in assists. Harper splitting the defense.
Kasparas Jakučionis has been on a tear lately and has become one of my favorite players in this draft class to watch. He's so confident in his game, he'll get really flashy at times, both with his passes and his shot selection. And he's got great size for a point guard listed at 6'6", 200. His scoring bag is super deep, as well as being able to create and knock down shots from all 3 levels, helping him score 20 plus in 6 straight games in December, which combined with his playmaking chops has propelled him into this top 3 spot for me at the moment.
Back 3. High! Jakučionis kicks it out.
Oh, look at that, man.
Oh, okay.
Between the legs. The pick and pop shooting that Illinois provides, and it's hard.
Ace Bailey is a really divisive prospect. Some absolutely love his game of potential, and others see his downsides as clear red flags for the future. I'm torn on him still, but I do love the shot making and athleticism at his size enough to keep him in my top 4 for now. His size and length make him a strong upside prospect on defense. He can rim protect like a big while having all the tools to guard on the perimeter, but the offense is a focus with him. The shot making ability is super impressive. A lot of nitpicking comes from the shot selection and lack of separation and creation for others. His advanced numbers don't look great either at the college level, but there's a ton of time for growth, so the shooting at that size is still really valuable to me.
The ball's going in with some of these guys. Oh, the cross. Bailey. Off with 4. Rice. Inside. Oh, gets into it. Bailey, same spot.
VJ Edgecombe hasn't been much of a scorer for Baylor. He more often scores with his athleticism rather than being a big part of their offense, but I don't think he projects to be that bad of a shooter. He takes a lot of jumpers, and the free throw percentage isn't terrible, and he shot the 3 well in high school. And in the grand scheme of things, he's not going to be drafted for his scoring ability necessarily. In my opinion, he's the best athlete in this class, an incredibly gifted defensive prospect, as he's averaging over 2.5 steals and a block per game, and he uses his athleticism to be an excellent rebounder for a guard, making him a really valuable player at the next level before the complete offensive game has even been developed.
Edgecombe tips it away.
Sometimes when there's a lot of contact, players kind of shy away from that. They do rely on the outside.
Love kick out to none.
Stolen away, breakaway. Rob Wright is...
Kaman Maluach isn't a big part of Duke's offense, but he's played his role really well so far as a setup scorer and putback big man, shooting an absurdly high percentage in the paint. However, from what we've seen prior to Duke as well as in moments here, Maluach is more than just a role player in the dunker spot. He's shown a bit of a jumper prior to college and is an excellent screener to operate in the pick and roll with. And he has the offensive IQ to get the ball to where it needs to go when he's in control. And defensively, the block numbers aren't really there yet, but on tape he's been super disruptive and is really tough to score over in the paint because of his reach advantage his size creates. Jeremiah Fear has been one of the best guards in all of college basketball and has skyrocketed up draft boards. When you watch Oklahoma, it just looks like Fears belongs in the league. His speed and quickness are on a different level, and he's got a knack for drawing fouls and hitting tough shots. The drawbacks right now are the consistency with the jumper, but at 18, there's a ton of time for growth, and he's gone in some heaters this year like the Michigan game. Turnovers are another spot, but he's got a strong enough handle to lessen some of those concerns in the future. And with his size and speed, he projects to be a really fun player to watch, maybe similar to a Jaden IVS type of guy. Asa Newell is an athletic stretch big prospect who seems to always be in easy scoring situations around the rim, and so far at Georgia, he's had some great games displaying his freakish athletic traits across the board. He's 6'11" and is fluid as a wing on both ends of the floor. Defensively, he can switch as well as run the floor in transition. He didn't start the year shooting well from deep, but as of late, he's been knocking down the shots even better than expected, which just makes his athleticism and size even more enticing for NBA teams to consider with a lottery selection this draft cycle.
Play good D. Newell for three.
Everything like tonight is worth it.
Got away with one there.
Oh, Harris, nifty by Oriole. Strong move, can't finish. There's Harris. Georgia by 15.
Trey Johnson's another big guard prospect, but definitely more of a shooting guard than a creator. He's really reliant on the jumper to score, as he's lacking a bit in burst and explosiveness, but the shooting is such a strong point, I have no issues ranking him inside my top 10 right now. As it stands, he's over 40% from deep on the year, taking more than 6 threes a game, and his free throw percentage is excellent as well. Trey can defend on ball well enough at 18 to suggest he'll be a plus on that side as well, and he's got good size for a secondary guard at the next level, which helped make up for the lack of playmaking he's shown so far.
They're giving a variety of looks.
SEC won the first 9 games before Clemson pulled off an upset of Kentucky. First one. Here's Trey Johnson with the fadeaway.
Texas. Johnson. Great find.
Derek Queen has some split opinions, but I really like him as a prospect. On the season, he put up 6 games of 20 plus for Maryland. He's got great touch around the basket and a ton of strength on his bigger frame and a jumper that he's shown some confidence in. Defense can be seen as a question mark for sure, especially with the weight concerns, but he gets compared to a baby Jokic type of big man for a reason with the IQ and passing ability. His mobility is not affected much by his weight, and similar to Jokic, the touch in the mid-range and near the rim is really strong, separating him from most other big men in this class in my opinion, especially if that jumper shows better results.
Double on Queen, work on Parks. Goes to the hook shot in the lane.
Will Queen let it go again? Oh, Queen driving, Queen.
Con Knipple is a super high-level shooting wing prospect, and as of late, he has some strong performances from deep to level off the slower start. I still don't think we've seen him play near the level of expectation yet, and there's still more to come, but shot making and playmaking are what make him a strong prospect, and there's little to no doubt about those abilities despite the inconsistent start. The downsides to him as a player right now are very evident. The lack of athleticism has made life difficult, but there's definitely no concerns with the motor or effort level to me, and he's coming off his best game of the season.
Knipple drives past Love and Wood, tipped around, and Knipple gets it back. Puts it up. Knipple for 3.
Liam McNeely is one of those prospects who's seen as a high floor, lower ceiling guy, and that may be true, but there's still a lot of value in a guy like that. As a primary shooter and high IQ wing, he's played his role really well for a freshman for UConn. The overall field goal percentage isn't great, but nearly 40% from deep on decent volume, and a fairly solid display of playmaking ability while not being a primary ball handler shows that IQ and competitiveness he brings to the floor. As a shooter, he's got a quick and smooth release, and fits into the NBA as an off-ball movement shooter, and a highly efficient one as well with the low turnover rate and connectability he's shown.
Diarra whips it behind. McNeely got him set. Battle, he got it anyway. Thought about the step back. Now he slices in.
Ben Saraf is one of the most consistent players in this draft, and he has a huge plus with his age as he's still just 18. He's a 6'5" guard from Israel playing in Germany, and has done a great job as an all-around point guard, scoring primarily at the rim and in the mid-range, using a great handle and change of pace to get to his spots and make quality shots. The downside is the obvious lack of explosiveness in his game and a fairly low three-point percentage, but the advantages he creates for a team with his playmaking, size, and ability with the basketball is definitely offsetting that and making him a strong first-round pick. And if that jumper comes around, a potential high-impact player fairly early on in his career. LeBaron Philon is one of my favorite players in this class to watch. I think he's just an incredibly exciting freshman. Obviously, there's the knack of his slim frame, but he's incredibly quick with an elite handle and scoring bag, and he can get to the rim whenever he wants. He uses his speed to his advantage, changing pace to beat defenders. He's the most efficient player in the country on floaters, and is clearly a better three-point shooter than his percentage suggests. As a playmaker, he hasn't really stood out, but he's shown good vision and instincts on simple reads to swing the rock to the open man, and is averaging about 4 assists a night so far. And I think with a stronger frame and a bit higher three-point percentage, Philon would find himself in the top 10 of this draft pretty unanimously. Colin Murray-Boyle shot up draft boards last year after a breakout freshman season, but chose to return to school and refine his game more to improve his draft stock, and so far the 6'7" big has done exactly that. He's definitely a non-shooter right now, but has knocked down a couple threes this year and can continue to grow in that area. But even without that, he impacts the game in so many ways on both ends. He uses his strength to his advantage in the post and is really crafty, and has taken a leap as a playmaker despite the assist total not really showing it. Creating good looks for both himself and others without even being a premier ball handler, and he's a pretty special defensive player at the college level as well.
I don't know about that one. Murray-Boyle's left-handed.
Hook isn't nearly as comfortable. And here's their main star.
Noah Asengwe is another tall French wing prospect with some questions on the jumper, but enough size and fluidness to warrant some lottery love. As of right now, the shot isn't coming around this season, but he looks comfortable shooting the ball and has found ways to score fairly efficiently regardless. He's putting up about 10 a game as a 17-year-old playing in Germany's top league. With his frame on the wing, I can see a lot of teams loving him, but without elite athleticism, the shot will have to be a big part of his game. But the player he is right now still looks valuable. He's got a good motor, he's a decent athlete and a quality connector, and still projects to be a solid shooter in the coming years.
Saraf throws the alley-oop and
Jetzt gegen Asengwe ist jetzt nicht unbedingt der Switch, den ich mir raussuche.
Ever since getting the role increase to the starting lineup, Ian Jackson's taken a huge leap for North Carolina, averaging 24 points per game on great efficiency across 5 or 6 games. He's a dynamic scorer first guard with a lot of aggression and a great handle. He's not much of a playmaker and he can get turnover happy, but right now as an off-ball shooter and rim attacker, he's been great, and with the ball in his hands can create a look for himself in many ways. Again, the versatility just isn't there to be a lead guard, and he hasn't shown much to be viewed as a versatile defender yet either, although I do think he can hold his own against opposing guards.
Jackson 4 to shoot, fade away.
Thomas Sorber is an all-around big, impacting the college game in several ways at just 18, as a scorer, passer, rebounder, and defender producing in every instance right now. He can stretch the floor as well, but has struggled a bit with efficiency there, and the shot definitely needs improvement, but even without it, Sorber provides so much value as a defender and all-around paint player. Having the strength and interior skill set with the basketball that he has at just 18 has a lot of scouts really excited about his potential, especially given that the jump shot mechanics and results see improvement in the coming years, which could make him a really good big man in the NBA.
Right here in this game. Working on Sorberg.
Jenkins, he drives, Chauncey.
Transition, and that's where he can make things happen. I would not be surprised if he gets a bucket.
Boogie Fland is one of the best pure points in this draft. He's the assist leader among freshmen this season with around 6 per game, and part of the reason he's so effective as a passer is due to his ability as a scoring threat. He's a dynamic pick and roll ball handler, and despite a low percentage at the rim, I think he's shown traits of a great slasher with a good mix of layups and floaters in his bag. He's got a killer mid-range and can stop on a dime to pull up and knock a shot down. The downside to him is the size at just 6'2" and a pretty big slump recently, but again, the shot making and passing ability makes up for the size to me, especially considering the rate his 3 balls fallen this year.
Miami eliminating themselves there. The 7-footer will launch from.
But he had Golden behind and he did get by him. Yeah, these Michigan guys know they've always got one, maybe 2 7-footers behind.
Igor Demin shot up draft boards with a red-hot start to the season, putting the country on notice with a super efficient shooting display on top of high-level creation skill for a 6'8" guard. But he's been in a huge slump with an increase in level of competition lately. I do think the early hype was premature, and seeing now the drop-off in production and conference play, Igor has a lot of room for improvement. I still think his playmaking, handle, and fluidness at 6'8" is more than enough to consider him a first-round worthy prospect, and if the jumper begins falling again, he can rebuild his status. But until we see that, the weaknesses of explosion and consistency are holding him back from being the elite prospect some thought he was early on.
Find to shoot. It'll be Devin. Right wing.
Danny Wolf might be my favorite sleeper right now. 7-footers with this skill set are so rare. He's a genuine triple-double threat, displaying an incredible IQ and passing ability, and can put the ball on the floor and isolate as well. And he's got range. He's shooting 35% from 3 on 3 attempts a game right now. Turnovers were an issue for a while, but they've dropped as of late, and he started to really control the paint defensively, having multiple games with 5 and 6 blocks. I don't necessarily see teams loving him as a lottery guy because of some slight athletic limitations in his prior 3-point percentages, but as the season goes on, he's getting better and better, and that stock keeps rising for me.
Up and
second three.
Struggling, but he's a hard driver.
Cam Jones was one of my hidden gems in last year's draft class. Had he declared, I would have considered him in the late first round range, but he opted to return to school, and I actually think it was the right move. As his performance this season stepping up as a playmaker has helped his stock tremendously. We obviously know he can get buckets at will at the college level, but over 6 assists a night now make him much more intriguing for NBA teams to evaluate. And again, it's easy to highlight his scoring ability as he's just a natural with the ball, and he has a ton of craftiness around the rim and a really strong jumper he trusts, making him one of the best, if not the best guard in the college basketball this season.
Over the last 3 years for the Badgers, and there's an example of one of them.
Cam Jones with a possession. Jones. Maury McGee on Cam Jones. Fall away three from the corner.
Jace Richardson is the son of former NBA star Jason Richardson, and Jace is having a stellar freshman season for Michigan State right now. Time will tell if he decides to enter this year's draft, but if he continues to play the way he is, I definitely see him as a first-round prospect and maybe eventually a lottery pick. He's been ridiculously efficient as a scorer, shooting 60% from the floor and 47% from 3 so far. We've seen some advanced passing flashes, and he's pretty athletic, making up for his fairly average size for a point guard at 6'3". Teams may worry about the low usage rate coming off the bench, but if he continues to be this efficient, I think making the jump to the NBA could be a no-brainer for him.
Jace Richardson launches a three. He fears into the corner for Richardson. Now State number 2 in white, freshman from New Hampshire.
In my opinion, there's no bigger draft loser right now than Nolan Traore. Originally seen as a potential top 5 pick, his level of play this season is not warranted those conversations, and I don't know if he's really a lottery guy right now. The 6'4" guard out of France had a ton of hype because of his playmaking and quickness on the floor, but so far this year he hasn't been a consistent scorer and really isn't finding much success at all. The athleticism is there and he's got solid tools, but until the jumper and finishing improves, I'm going to have the Traore out of the lottery talks. We saw a great game out of him this week though, so hopefully he continues to perform at that level as the season continues.
40% à la Grégor-Rovat. Du côté qui est passé dessous.
Hugo Gonzalez has been in the draft space for quite a while now. Scouts have really liked his athleticism on the offensive end and how hard he plays for Real Madrid. We've started to see more self-creation on the offensive end lately and improved shot making. With a few recent double-digit scoring efforts for Madrid off the bench, he's a guy some like more than others, and I'm pretty split with him overall. But he's had some solid production in his role as a young player in the EuroLeague so far, and clearly has the tools to be a good player going forward, especially if the scoring leaps continue to happen as he progresses with more and more playing time. Rasheer Fleming's been one of the most productive players in the country this season, and doing so with a ton of versatility, currently being one of the only players in the country with more than 20 dunks and 3-pointers on the season. With Fleming, the athleticism and shooting is not all you get. He's shown creation flashes and elite defensive tools and instincts at the mid-major level, using his size and length to his advantage to just outmatch opponents on both ends of the floor and take over games for St. Joseph's. If the jumper continues to look this strong, I definitely see his draft stock continuing to hang around the first-round conversation, projecting to be a connective floor-spacing defender at the next level. Miles Bird can bring a ton of value to an NBA team due to his 3-and-D nature. He's shooting around 40% from deep and putting up 3 stocks a game, including over a block a night as a 6'7" wing. And what makes him stand out from some other 3-and-D guys is his ability with the ball. He can put the ball on the floor and create his offense as well. San Diego State hasn't had the toughest schedule yet, so we'll see if he performs against better competition. But the sophomore has shown enough confidence in knocking down shots and enough athleticism to expect it to continue near the level we've already seen it.
Bellamy hits the Jets.
Pick and roll, and Bemba. Oh!
Horn, not a good pass. That's what Bird does. Oh! To Corville. Trail 3, Bird.
Noah Penda is another guy I've seen mixed opinions on. I'd say he's a consensus top 40 guy in this class, but some have him as a lottery pick. I'm not there yet with him personally, but I do like his game. He's a good shooter, a strong defender, and has a great frame at 6'8", 225 on the wing. The reason I'm lower on him is because I don't fully see a ton of scoring potential outside of occasional off-ball looks and easy buckets since he's not a great athlete. But he is versatile enough as a player for NBA teams to be really interested in him as a future plus defensive floor spacer on the wing.
Philippe Crosby. Oh là là! Oh là là, la grosse défense. Et Noah Penda qui va monter au dunk. Dans le temple du basket français. Noah Penda.
Nate Clifford came back to Colorado State to be the leading scorer this season, and he's put on some scoring clinics this year so far, making a strong case for himself as a first-round pick this cycle. Currently averaging about 17 points and 10 rebounds a night on 51% from the field. Clifford's put everything together in his senior season, and that's even with the 3-ball not falling with the same consistency it was a season ago. But the volume obviously could have something to do with that. Regardless, I think Clifford's two-way ability and clear leadership on the floor will have him firmly in consideration for a first-round pick from a number of teams this offseason.
Meek with the crossover, got right down the lane, scoops. There's Nick Clifford on the other end. Fadeaway 2 from the Tennessee State back to man-to-man defense. Clifford deep 3.
His pocket. Rams with Williams in transition. Lob. Dunk from Nick.
Alex Karaban chose to return to UConn after winning back-to-back national titles, and his play has him in first-round consideration right now. His role is the same as with Karaban. You aren't going to get someone who's going to handle the ball or create much for others, but he's a knockdown shooter who can both spot up and shoot off of movement. He's a pretty adept finisher for his style of wing as well, making him more effective as an off-ball scorer. Defensively, I wouldn't say he's great, but he uses his size to his advantage and can block shots in the perimeter and in the paint, and can switch to guard multiple positions on the floor. Again, showcasing value beyond just being a spot-up shooter in the league.
It bounces to his teammate in Karaban, who hits.
Back to Karaban off the flare screen.
Dink Pate is another jumbo ball handler prospect, which a lot of scouts really love. There's a lot of highs and lows with his performances, as it's been pretty inconsistent, but that's to be expected. He's an 18-year-old playing in the G League and was on the Ignite team last year and moved over to the Mexico City team for this one. As a player, his strength right now are definitely his ability to create good looks for himself and his improved shot making, as well as his versatility due to his size and skill set as a guard. There's still a ways to go in terms of being a lead guy, creating for others, and finishing at the basket, but the potential is one of the higher marks in this draft class for sure. Carter Bryant is someone I have pegged as a late season draft riser, and I'm keeping him around this range despite low production and minutes at Arizona so far. But I really like his game and think we'll continue to see an uptick in minutes as long as he continues playing smart, high-energy basketball for the Wildcats. The jumpers haven't really been falling for him, but we've known him to be a solid shooter on the wing with great positional size at 6'8", 220. He's also shown some flashes as a great connector, averaging over an assist per game despite being so low usage on the wing.
The cut, backdoor cut, and the Skillings drives, it's blocked.
Will Riley started the year off on fire, dropping 31 points in his Illinois debut, but has cooled off since then, having really poor shooting stretch from Thanksgiving onward. Another year in school looks like a possibility, however, he's got the size, traits, and age to be really attractive to front offices still, and he's shown the ability we saw early on as well as in high school career of elite shot making and self-creation. For the rest of the season, though, I think Will have to work on his ability to create for others and continue progressing as an athlete, because I think the limitations have looked fairly obvious on defense at this point in his freshman season.
Riley, a near full rotation in the works.
Drake Powell's draft stock has fallen quite a bit due to a slower start to the year than he had hoped, but we still see the talent on display. He went through a pretty rough stretch of games in November and December, but January's been a much better month for him so far, and if that continues, he'll work himself back towards mid-first round talks. The 6'6" freshman's an off-ball defensive wing, but he's shooting 40% from deep right now and has a great motor on both ends, and projects to be an excellent defender with that effort level matching his athleticism and instincts on that end too.
Staying in this game, and it's tied because of its effort on the glass. Hill blocked by Powell.
Adu Thiero has come a long way since arriving at Kentucky a few years ago, and I still think there's a good ways for him to go to reach the potential that many saw as a recruit. He's a stellar athlete who knows how to use it to his advantage to create his own offense, and he's got great size on the wing combined with great footwork with the ball, which has propelled him to being one of the deadliest inside-the-arc scorers in the country this season. The drawbacks that come with Thiero are still consistency on the jumper and a lack of playmaking. I think those concerns are what hold him out of being a higher-level prospect despite the bump in scoring this season.
Longer recovery to the three-point shooter. You just got to make it.
Janai Broome has been the best player in college basketball this season. He's an all-around big man with production in basically every category. Almost 3 blocks a night and a 20-point double-double with a clear playmaking flashes out of the post. Whatever team drafts Janai, this cycle is going to get a complete NBA-ready player who can impact the game in a positive manner. The jumper has consistently been improving throughout the years, and despite a pretty rough percentage, I think the comfortability he shows with it is a positive. Even if he's never a major threat from outside, the ability with the ball, interior scoring ability, and defensive presence is what makes him an early round 2 sleeper for me. Alex Tui flirted with the draft process last cycle, but smartly chose to return to the NBL for another season instead of entering the draft. He had some early hype, but it faded as he was definitely more fit for this class, and so far this year he's been improving quite a bit. Coming off back-to-back 20-plus point outings, he's shown more aggressiveness, especially getting to the rim. He's got a lot of size on the wing, which he needs to use to his advantage since the jumper hasn't fallen at a great rate. But I think the shooting is something that a lot of people will think will be a strength of his with some time.
Will they do it? Did anyone really think
Sergio De La Reyna is only 19, but playing some great basketball in the Euro League. His minutes are a bit up and down as he comes off the bench, but he's been a really strong lead guard for Valencia. Super efficient as a jump shooter, over 40% from 3, and an incredible assist rate right now. He's not turning the ball over either, which is so great to see for a young player. We'll see if he continues to be a point guard when he transitions to the NBA, as many think he's more of a playmaking too. But regardless, the high efficient play is a great sign, and if that continues as his minutes increase, I definitely could see him getting some round 1 buzz. Bogoljub Markovic is a guy I personally haven't dove too deep into yet, but from what I've seen right now, I get why some like him as a project pick for the NBA. He's a little frail for 6'11", but it doesn't look like that'll be an area he can't grow in, and he doesn't really use his size to score, as he's been getting buckets with spot-up jumpers and great touch in the post near the basket. He's also really mobile and able to take the basketball coast to coast on his own, which is a huge advantage at his size. That kind of scoring versatility is going to make him a really appealing guy to NBA front offices come draft night. Maxime Reynaud is one of the best offensive big men in the country. The senior's averaging over 21 points a game and 11 rebounds, and has a great mix of good footwork in the paint as well as a confident jumper. And I think he's a better athlete than he gets credit for. He's also shown to be a great passer out of the post. As a defensive big, he definitely can grow quite a bit, but with his size, I can see him becoming at least average enough for his offensive ability to get him drafted in round 2 and see some minutes in the league.
10-second call. Aiden Kamen in for the first time tonight.
Okpara. Reynaud got away from the defender.
Ryan Kalkbrenner is one of the most dominant bigs in all of college basketball, using his size to his advantage in the post and being really effective as a disruptor around the rim on defense. Teams really shy away from the basket against Creighton because of his presence, even though he's not the most mobile center out there. Offensively, scouts have really wanted to see him expand his range, and he hasn't really completely, but the jumper looks better, and he's knocking down a few 3 lately, but the finishing ability and skill in the post at his size is a big draw with him, and I think his dominance warrants an early second round look for sure.
Lob ahead.
Alex Condon's been one of Florida's best players this season and has taken a leap that I think could lead him into first round conversations. Time will tell if he declares or not, depending on where his stock is at, but I love his mobility and feel as a big man, on top of his defensive presence where he can block shots, switch on to guards, and hold his own. Versatility and mobility is so valuable for big men, and I think he's got it all, especially if the jumper proves to be as consistent as it has been. The more he shows it, the higher his stock can go.
Hand very well. And they can push it to 10, and they will. Wide open.
Chaz Lanier is the leading scorer on one of the best teams in the country. The North Florida transfer made an instant impact at Tennessee, similar to how Dalton connected. Knecht was definitely a better prospect and player, but Lanier's been an excellent this season, has a career 42% three-point percentage on 500 attempts, and is overall just an incredible shot maker. He projects as an average size offensive 2-guard, and the defense and playmaking is definitely lacking, which is why I don't think he's a first-round guy. But highly efficient scorers who can do it in the SEC aren't super common, and I think that'll draw quite a bit of interest from the NBA. Darion Williams is an under-the-radar prospect who I've started to really like. He's a bigger lead guard at 6'6", averaging over 5 assists a night, and plays really well in the post for a guard. He started the season in a bit of a slump from deep, but the shooting percentages are moving up fast, and now look pretty strong at 48 overall and 37 from deep. He's playing in a great conference as well, so as a consistent upperclassman, I expect him to continue moving up boards in the future.
Darion Williams controls, working on Keanu Dawes. Williams.
Andrei Stojakovic is the son of NBA legend Peja Stojakovic, and he's had a major breakout sophomore season after transferring from Stanford to Cal. Andre isn't quite the shooter his dad was, but he has a pretty expanded game on top of being a quality shot maker. His slashing ability is what's allowed him to score 20 points per game this season. He's got a good handle and is pretty explosive on the rim as well, and I think we've seen him become a pretty solid defender at the college level in just a year and a half so far. All the more reason to start keeping an eye on him, potentially moving up this board in the future.
Stojakovic.
Cannon Catchings, another big athletic wing with some solid shot-making ability, but a ways to go in terms of creation and playmaking. On the year, he's averaging 10 a game as a freshman, but the percentages are just not there, mostly due to the difficulty of finding open looks at the college level. The athleticism is the draw, but the big issue for me right now lies with the free throw percentage. Under 50% on about 30 total shots right now is not a great sign, but we know the type of player he was in high school, and I think a lot of scouts see the upside with him, especially considering how well he can use his length on the defensive end already, and what he could be when he gets coached up there more. I personally am not very high on Rocco Zikarsky compared to some others. He's struggling to find minutes in the NBL right now, and that usually doesn't bode well for the NBA future. He does have great size at the center position though, standing around 7'2", but he's not the strongest and lacks speed and quickness to be able to be as mobile as he needs to be right now. He makes up for it a bit with solid defensive instincts, but the lack of aggressiveness and contact avoidance are two big reasons why he can't see the floor much in the NBL. Obviously, at just 18, there's a ton of room for growth. I just don't love the level of project he seems to be at this point in the evaluation period, but obviously the potential is there. JT Toppins missed a few games this season with a leg injury, but early on and again right now, it looks like the Texas Tech move was a great decision. He's been phenomenal, and doing so against high major competition is going to be a big boost for solidifying his chances to get drafted. I think last year the talent was clear, but now displaying the paint scoring at a high level at just 19 is huge. He's really good in the pick and roll and has great touch in the post. The limitation for him is the 3-ball right now. He does take threes, but at a very low rate, only 32 attempts last season and 10 so far this year. But if that becomes a skill of his eventually, his defensive presence will make him a player for sure. Walter Clayton Jr. is one of the most exciting players to watch in the country this season for Florida, leading a top 10 team in the country with around 18 a night on great efficiency considering the volume. He's more of a score-first point guard, but he averages 4 assists a game this season and does have a largely improved playmaking ability. But I think another area he took a big leap in this offseason was his finishing. Shooting over 60% on twos and great from the rim overall at just 6'3" is a very good sign for his ability to score at the next level beyond just shooting. And I think he definitely could get a look from an NBA teams in round 2.
Clayton.
Hunter Sallis shot up boards last season with a breakout year after transferring to Wake Forest, but inconsistent play forced him to decide to return to school for another year, and so far this season he's been producing even more, but the inconsistency is still there with the shot making and playmaking. When he's on, he generally looks the part of a first-round pick, but when he's off and forcing tough looks, you can see why the advice was to return. In his defense, this Wake Forest team isn't offering him a ton of help this year, and he's still getting buckets this season, but the three-point percentage regressing back to his first 2 seasons has definitely hurt his stock a bit to me. Tyrese Proctor has been mocked as a late first, early second round pick for 3 years now, but for the most part his stock's been much lower than he wanted it to be, and returning was in his best interest. And this season he's been his best so far, especially shooting wise. A career high 42% from 3 right now, and a career high 43% overall. The assist totals are down quite a bit, but most of that's due to the presence of Cooper Flagg, as well as how guard heavy Duke is this season. If this is the year he comes out, I definitely see a team buying the previous creation and passing flash we saw, with a now much improved jumper to go along with it.
You see penetration at the kick out over to Proctor again.
Johan Grunlow is looking like a potential draft gem big man right now. He's got a quality jumper, shooting almost 40% from deep on the year while being a premier shot blocker in the German league right now. And that's allowing him to pick up big minutes playing in the league where young guys don't get a ton of run. There are some questions within the rest of his game coming around, but the pick and pop potential and defensive upside definitely have scouts interested right now.
Trying to know where to go. Grunlow's made 1 3. No. Trying to go pick and roll.
Jameer Watkins elected to return to school instead of entering last year's class, and I think his stock has been fairly stagnant compared to where it was last year. But his level of play this season may draw some interest from teams drafting the late first, early second area still because of his projected role. He's a 6'7" wing with solid strength and a ton of athleticism who finally seems to be hitting his stride as a more consistent shooter. While he's still up and down, I definitely see the improvement myself, and he's got a lot of value as a defender and an athlete on the floor regardless.
Wincing in pain, trying to defend Watkins. Fumbled ahead. Watkins trying to beat everybody to the rim.
JoJo Tugler is a great athlete, elite defender, and a smaller guy, but he blocks everything. Offensively, there's a lot of questions of how he fits in because of his size, and with just 8 3-point attempts on the year, it's clear that's not an area he's very comfortable with right now. But the defensive ability, on top of being just 19, should still slot him at a round 2 somewhere if he elects to declare, as he's just a defensive menace at Houston this year.
Speaking of number holes,
Tugler came flying in. Here's Tugler at the other end.
Yaxel Lendeborg is an absolute monster in the American Conference this season for UAB, filling the stat sheet every night with all-around play. He can block shots, pick up steals, score inside the arc, rebound, and make quality passing reads all at 6'9". He does have some range in his bag, but he doesn't take too many threes despite shooting above 30% on the year from deep. But if an NBA team believes they can expand that part of his game, his all-around game and athleticism are going to get him picked in round 2 for sure.
6'5" right now. A long 2-point jump. Barely time to catch your breath in this one.
Xavier Lee has taken another step this season, and I think he's solidified himself so far as a potential draft pick. This season he's shooting near 40% from deep and averaging a career-high 6 assists a game, and what really draws the attention to him is the handle and change of pace he can play with. He can be lightning quick going downhill, putting pressure on a defense, but has such a strong ability to play make at that pace and makes it so hard to stop. Although he's at a mid-major, his game is translated against great opponents, and I think he's got a chance to be a real player at the next level.
Since that early spurt, and on step, unafraid of play through contact.
Michael Rusas has been out since mid-October with an injury and has slid down draft boards a bit because of that, but prior to the injury, he started generating a lot of buzz with his offensive ability as a big. At 6'10", he's got a lot of skill and versatility, stretching the floor while also having nice touch around the rim, and good ball skills for his size and position. Defensively, there's some work to do, but he's a decent team defender and can use his size and length to disrupt shots in the end as well.
Pero la pelota todavía es para el Juventud, se acaba el tiempo. Rucic, estar cómodos en el partido. Rucic, otra, el tercero.
Mackenzie Mbako is in year 2 at Indiana and has played much better at the 4 for the Hoosiers as opposed to the 3. And with his size and skill at 6'9", it makes sense as he can be a bit of a mismatch there. Time will again tell if he enters this year's draft, as returning looks like a decent option with how inconsistent his play has been. But I think as we've seen, the talent is there and he's a very capable scorer, especially with the jumper. His splits this season, despite the inconsistency, are still solid. We just really need to see his play be less hit or miss on both ends of the floor.
Mbako one more time.
Mark Sears measured in pretty undersized at last year's combine, but that was the expectation, so he wasn't hurt too much. Ultimately, he decided to return to school and chase a national title, and the year started kind of up and down performance-wise for him, but he's been really good lately. I'd expect teams to shy away from him a bit because of his size and playstyle being so score-heavy, but being as good of a shooter and playmaker as he is should get him a look regardless.
They've got him 3 really good looks on those baseline out-of-bounds plays, just 1 of 3 though.
Sears step through.
Eric Dixon has also been one of the best players in the country this season, especially scoring-wise. He's currently leading the country in points per game with around 25 a night. That production alone could easily get him drafted, even with his age being a clear negative at almost 24, and some athletic limitations, especially as a big man. Defensively, he's been okay in college, but has hardly any blocks in the season, so he doesn't project to be great there at the next level. But again, the jump he's made as a shooter this season in terms of both volume and efficiency, allowing him to be the nation's leading scorer, should definitely give him a shot to be selected in June. That's it for my Big Board 1.0. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below and if there's anybody I'm sleeping on or overrating. And also any ideas you have for content you want to see in the future. As always, thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.